On May 12, 2017, a doctor in a UK hospital tried to access a patient's medical records. But instead of a chart, a red screen appeared. A timer was counting down. The message was simple. Your files have been encrypted. Pay us $300 in Bitcoin or they're gone forever. This wasn't an isolated incident. At that very moment, the same red screen was flashing on computers at train stations in Germany, car factories in France, and telecom giants in Spain. Our digital world was having a heart attack, and nobody knew how to stop it. This wasn't just some random computer virus. This was a weapon that had been built by one of the most powerful intelligence agencies on the planet, stolen by a mysterious group of hackers, and then unleashed on the entire world. This is the story of WannaCry, the day a piece of code held the world hostage. It all started on a Friday morning. The first reports trickled in from Europe. Spain's largest telecom company, Telefónica, was hit. Then, chaos erupted inside the UK's National Health Service. 1/3 of all NHS hospitals were infected. Ambulances were diverted. 19,000 appointments, including cancer treatments and surgeries, were cancelled. The system, designed to save lives, was suddenly fighting for its own. The infection spread with terrifying speed, because WannaCry wasn't just ransomware. It was a ransomware worm. Most viruses need you to do something stupid, like click a suspicious link in an email. WannaCry didn't need an invitation. Once it got inside a single computer on a network, it could actively hunt for other vulnerable machines and infect them automatically, spreading from one to the next without any human interaction. It moved through corporate and government networks like a fire through a dry forest. Within hours, it had infected over 200,000 computers in 150 countries. FedEx in the US, Renault in France, Russia's Interior Ministry. No one was safe. The ransom note itself was translated into 28 languages, a sign of its global ambition. Pay up, it said, and you'll get your files back. But here's the thing about paying criminals. There's no guarantee. And even if you wanted to pay, how many hospitals or government offices knew how to buy Bitcoin in a panic? The world was grinding to a halt, crippled by a threat that seemed unstoppable. But the key to its power was also the secret to its undoing. And that secret was hidden inside a vault at the US National Security Agency. To understand how this happened, you have to know about Eternal Blue. It's not the name of a rock band. It's the code name for a top-secret cyber weapon developed by the NSA. Think of it as a master key. The NSA discovered a critical flaw in most versions of Microsoft Windows, and instead of telling Microsoft so they could fix it, they built a tool to exploit it. This tool, Eternal Blue, allowed them to remotely access and control computers around the world for intelligence gathering. It was one of their most powerful digital assets. And then they lost it. A year before WannaCry, a mysterious hacker group calling themselves the Shadow Brokers announced they had hacked the NSA and stolen a huge cache of their most sensitive cyber weapons. At first, many in the security world were skeptical. But then, the shadow brokers started leaking the tools online for free. It was the digital equivalent of a weapons depot being thrown open for anyone to loot. And in April 2017, just 1 month before the attack, they released the big one, Eternal Blue. Microsoft had actually released a patch for this vulnerability a month earlier, but here's the critical part. Hundreds of thousands of computers around the world hadn't been updated. Large organizations are often slow to patch their systems, fearing it could break other software. Many were still using old, unsupported versions of Windows, like Windows XP, that wouldn't get the patch at all. The world was littered with unlocked doors, and the shadow brokers had just given every criminal on the internet a master key. Someone just had to pick it up and use it. And they did. They combined the Eternal Blue worm with a piece of ransomware and created the perfect storm, WannaCry. The attack was raging. Global logistics, healthcare, and manufacturing were in crisis. It seemed like nothing could stop the spread. The financial damage was climbing into the billions. But as cybersecurity experts around the world scrambled to understand the code, a 22-year-old researcher in the UK, working from his bedroom in his parents' house, noticed something weird. His name is Marcus Hutchins, but online he was known as Malware Tech. While analyzing a sample of the WannaCry code, he found a line that was trying to connect to a bizarre, unregistered web domain. It was a long, nonsensical string of letters and numbers. On a hunch, he decided to register it. It cost him about $10.69. He didn't do it to be a hero. He just wanted to track the infection and see how many computers were trying to connect to this strange address. He had no idea he was about to hit the kill switch. It turns out the hackers had built a primitive off switch into their own malware. Before encrypting a computer's files, the code would check if this specific domain was registered. If it couldn't connect, because the domain didn't exist, it would proceed with the attack. But if it could connect, meaning the domain was live, the program would simply shut down and stop spreading. Why would they do this? Some experts believe it was a way for the creators to stop their own weapon if they needed to. Or perhaps it was a crude way to evade analysis by security tools. Whatever the reason, it was a fatal mistake. By spending $10 to register that domain, Marcus Hutchins accidentally activated the kill switch. Almost immediately, the rate of new infections plummeted. He had single-handedly slowed a global cyber attack to a crawl. He was an accidental hero, but the damage was already done. The kill switch stopped the spread, but it did nothing for the hundreds of thousands of victims who were already locked out of their files. For them, the nightmare was just beginning. The chaos at the NHS alone cost an estimated £92 million to clean up. But what about the ransom? With all that damage, you'd think the hackers made a fortune. But they didn't. Blockchain analysis shows that only about 327 payments were made, totaling around $130,000. It's a tiny amount compared to the scale of the destruction. Most people either couldn't pay, wouldn't pay, or restored from backups. For weeks, the Bitcoin sat untouched in the hackers' digital wallets. Moving it would be risky, as law enforcement agencies worldwide were watching. Then, about 3 months after the attack, the money started to move. In a series of complex transactions, the funds were funneled through crypto laundering services, making them nearly impossible to trace. The thieves were cashing out, which left just one final, massive question. Who were they? The evidence trail didn't lead to a basement-dwelling hacker or a typical criminal gang. It pointed directly at a nation-state, specifically North Korea. Security firms and government agencies, including the US and UK, publicly attributed the WannaCry attack to the Lazarus Group, a notorious hacking collective sponsored by the North Korean regime. This is the same group believed to be behind the 2014 hack of Sony Pictures and numerous multi-million-dollar cyber heists on banks. The code used in WannaCry shared distinct similarities with previous tools created by Lazarus. This attribution sparked a massive debate. If North Korea launched the attack, but they used a weapon built by the NSA, who is really to blame? Critics argued that the NSA's policy of stockpiling digital vulnerabilities, rather than disclosing them, created the very conditions that made WannaCry possible. It's a debate that continues to this day. Where is the line between national security and global cybersecurity? WannaCry was a wake-up call. It was a brutal, real-world demonstration of how interconnected and vulnerable our world has become. It forced companies and governments to take patching and cybersecurity far more seriously. But the threat isn't gone. Even today, years later, security researchers still find thousands of computers connected to the internet that are vulnerable to eternal blue. The weapon is still out there, and the doors are still unlocked. The story of WannaCry is more than just a tale of code and chaos. It's a story about a leaked government superweapon, a global digital pandemic, and an accidental hero in his bedroom who helped save the world for the price of a sandwich. It's a reminder that in our modern world, the biggest threats might not come from bombs and bullets, but from a few lines of code. If you find these hidden digital battles as fascinating as I do, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss the stories we have coming up next. Thanks for watching.